calls it a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined again by Daniel Starkand. Two of these live breaking news reports in 2 days. Daniel, tell me if you've heard this before. The Dodgers traded for a middle infielder who's not very good defensively, who's also not very good offensively. Have you heard that story before? Because Amed Rosario is now a Dodger, according to Jeff Passan, and confirmed by Ken Rosenthal.
Yeah, another move for right-handed hitting, middle infielder here. That's pretty underwhelming on the surface. But yeah, the stove is hot, so I'm glad we're at least here talking about actual moves. I think the rumors get kind of tiring. And yesterday we said they probably still need one more bat, especially after Johnny DeLuca gets hurt yesterday, and here it is. So we'll get into what they potentially see in him. But this is kind of another, under the radar type move. Like, this isn't necessarily a game changer. We're still waiting to see what the Dodgers are sending out here. I feel like that most of the time that determines, how we feel about a trade like this. Like, if they're not giving up a lot, then fine. If they're giving up, a significant prospect, then I think we'll both be a little bummed.
So here's the story on Rosario. He's a 27-year-old. He's in the final year of arbitration, so he'll be a free agent next year. Was due to make $7.8 million this year. So again, figure he's got about $3.5-ish million left on that contract. To be determined what the Dodgers are sending out, to be determined if money is coming back with Rosario from the Guardians. But I'll say this, I actually like this move better than the Kike Hernandez move. Both of these guys are really, really bad defensively, as we've said, first percentile, outs above average. I didn't know multiple people could be in the first percentile, but they're both in the first percentile. Rosario, by many metrics, is actually worse at shortstop. And I emphasize at shortstop because I'm not convinced he's actually going to be playing shortstop for the Dodgers, which we'll get to. But the reason I like this move better is because against left-handed pitching, which is the side of the plate that the Dodgers have been targeting reportedly throughout this stretch of time, Rosario's actually not just okay, he's actually incredible. He's a career 302 hitter against left-handed pitching. That's in 817 at bats. He's hitting 303 this year. He's hit above 300 against lefties in 4 of the last 5 seasons. The one season he didn't, he hit 295. If you want to go weighted runs created plus, 100 is league average. He's been above average every single year of his career. He's at 126 this year. He was 126 last year. He was 129 the year before that. He's 123 for his career. So I'll say this, if you're looking for a guy to hit against left-handed pitching for someone who presumably isn't going to cost basically anything at all, I would imagine the return is going to be very similar to what the Kike Hernandez deal. Maybe this is Brian Hudson, who was my other prediction of the reliever going out last time. Maybe it's somebody like that going the other direction. But at least he's hitting lefties. Kike, you kind of have to cross your fingers and hope that he's going to start hitting lefties again. Rosario never stopped hitting lefties. Again, he's 27 years old. He's a rental. So before we get into the defensive side, I do want to say, Daniel, I like the offensive profile here because what they gave up, again, I'm guessing, is not much for a guy that has never stopped hitting left-handed pitching.
Yeah, and I also think you need to compare him to who's playing time he will be taking. And first of all, he's going to take Yanni Hernandez's spot on the roster. So I say that's a pretty big upgrade there. If he's playing shortstop, he's probably going to be taking a lot of Miguel Rojas's at bats. I don't think either of us are opposed to that. And like you said, he hits left-handed pitching, which is kind of what this team has needed all season. So the role for him is definitely there. I think you'd like the defense to be a little bit better. Like you said, first percentile, him and Kike both doesn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence. We know the Dodgers pitching staff, it's not like they're filled with a ton of, swing and miss type guys. They have a lot of guys who give up contact. So you would like some defense, but if he could continue that production against left-handed pitching, like you said, it's a rental. He's in the final year of his deal. So we're both under the assumption that the cost is not going to be too high. So I think on the surface, both of these two trades the last couple of days have been underwhelming, but they filled needs without giving up a lot. So I think when you look at it in that context, it's okay.
Yeah. I do want to shift to the defensive side because I actually do think there's something here. I mentioned Rosario has been terrible defensively at shortstop. Based on the fact that Dodgers traded to acquire Miguel Rojas and extended him, I think they have told us what they believe about how important a defensive player is at shortstop. So I don't think Kike Hernandez or Amed Rosario are going to be finding themselves at shortstop. They wanted Kike's bat in the lineup today, and guess what? He wasn't playing shortstop. My guess is that Rosario is actually going to be a guy they try out in the outfield. He has 171 career innings in the outfield. I mean, to try and make sense of some defensive metrics and what amounts to basically 29 inning games out there would be foolish. But Daniel, I cannot imagine that they're going to play this guy at shortstop with as bad as he has been defensively, as you pointed out, with all the guys that they have that aren't getting swing and miss, that aren't striking a ton of guys out, lots of balls in play. I don't think they want Rosario. So I think they're just going to say, can we turn this guy into a left fielder? I think that's the plan. That's my guess. That against lefties, you throw, Kike in center field, maybe, and you throw Rosario in left field, and you throw Outman in right field, and you kind of just hope for the best. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at this roster now, there's a ton of versatility. Like, you could kind of move guys all over. I guess shortstop, a good shortstop who could hit and play defense, I guess, is the one thing they're still kind of missing, unless you count Mookie as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's an athletic guy. He's got good speed, so I think in theory he could play the outfield. Maybe he's played second base in the past as well. And also I think just his speed is good to have, on your bench. This team doesn't really have a pinch runner or anything like that, and I think as you get closer to the postseason, that's a role that you'd like to have filled just for big situations like that. So I think they'll probably try him all over. He'll probably play some shortstop. He'll play some outfield. He'll play some second. And they'll just kind of see how it goes. I think right now we're kind of looking at a position player group that's more or less set as far as in the organization now. I'm not expecting another move for a position player at this point. So overall, I like the versatility they have. I think their depth is better now than it was 48 hours ago, even if it's not huge upgrades. I do think if you're looking at, who Kike and Rosario are replacing on the roster, they're upgrades. So yeah. I think the fact that you could do that without giving up a lot is good. And we still know pitching needs to be addressed between now and the deadline, and you still have a lot of prospects to go and do that.
Yeah, I see people asking who's going to be traded for Amed Rosario, but we don't know that yet. We do have a quote from Dave Roberts on the reported trade. Quote, "I know he's a heck of a ball player. I don't know if it's finalized or what. I'm just trying to process the game, but I know I like him as a ball player." So we do have that. Bob Nightingale's confirming the trade. It doesn't sound like there's any report of who exactly is going out. So something to keep an eye on. I wonder, Daniel, something I tweeted about. Miguel Rojas has come up to the plate in a few really big spots in the last couple of games, and as big of spots as it could be in the end of July kind of situations. But at least this gives you flexibility that if there's a lefty on the mound and Miguel Rojas is coming up with runners on second and third and 2 outs in the 7th inning, then you have a guy who could, in theory, play shortstop and who can pinch hit in that spot. So I do think that's the one nice piece of flexibility of Kike Hernandez and Rosario. Even if they're very below average defenders at shortstop, they at least give you the opportunity to, these are guys that could play third base in a pinch. They could probably play second base in a pinch. They could probably play left field in a pinch. So it just gives you flexibility on moving guys around. Obviously, Mookie Betts, another guy who could play second base, shortstop, right field, center field. So Chris Taylor, a guy who could play every position on the field. So I do think that matters. And I do want to highlight something that you said. You mentioned sprint speed. Rosario being one of the faster players. He's in the 95th percentile for sprint speed in Major League Baseball. So you're talking about a guy with elite speed. We know the stolen base has become more of a thing this season. Does only have 9 steals, but I mean, that would probably place him. I know Freeman's 1 and Outman's 2. So that would probably place him 3rd on the stolen base. Do we have names?
We have a name, and I have a feeling people are going to like this trade a lot better.
Please
now that
tell me it's Austin Barnes.
The Los Angeles Dodgers are sending Noah Syndergaard to the Cleveland Guardians.
No way.
For Amed Rosario.
No way.
Pat Regato, I don't know who he works for. We'll wait. I guess we'll wait to see Aston or Rosenthal or someone confirm that. But I think if it's Syndergaard for Rosario, I think this trade looks a lot better.
Wait, who tweeted that it was Syndergaard?
Pat Ragazzo. I don't know who he works for. Let's see. I got his profile. He's a New York Mets beat reporter for Fan Nation of Sports Illustrated. Rosario came from the Mets. He was in the Francisco Lindor deal. I guess we'll wait and see if Passan or someone could confirm that. But if that's true, this trade just got a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, I would still imagine the Dodgers are probably sending some money with Syndergaard to where it's like, but again, even if the Dodgers are basically paying the rest of Syndergaard's salary and the Guardians are paying the rest of Rosario's salary, that would be an absolutely wild. Oh my gosh. Everybody in the comments, they just can't believe that it's true. I mean, the look on your face, I was like, did they trade Austin Barnes? I didn't even imagine that
we talked yesterday about maybe it was Thor for Kike. I didn't think Cleveland would be interested in him. I thought maybe the Red Sox because they could use pitching, but Cleveland's usually good at developing pitching, so they must see something in Thor if they're taking him back.
Yeah, here you go. Fox Sports just retweeted it. MLB on Fox. So they must believe that that's a credible source. Yeah, the Guardians are acquiring Noah Syndergaard from the Dodgers in exchange for Amed Rosario. Holy smokes. I mean, how could you possibly complain about this trade? We all wanted Syndergaard DFA'd. They just got a guy that we were all hoping would be DFA'd, and instead they got a guy who has a 800 OPS against lefties in exchange.
I think this is probably a good trade all around, honestly. Like Noah kind of has seen the writing on the wall the last couple months. I think he's been on the IL, even though he's pretty much been healthy. I'd say I don't think there was much of an injury there. And if you look at Cleveland, their rotation, they've had some injuries. Shane Bieber is going to be out for a while, so he gets a chance to perhaps go and make their rotation. The Dodgers get a guy that hits lefties, so I think it works, all around. So if that's all it is, we'll see. Maybe there's a prospect the Dodgers are throwing in with Syndergaard. But if this is all it is, I don't see how anyone could be mad at this move.
Yeah. I mean, is there any part of you that is disappointed to see Syndergaard gone?
I want to be nice here, but no, I'm not super disappointed at all. I don't think he was getting to the point where he after his next rehab start, I'm pretty sure that was the max amount of days he could have for a rehab assignment. So it got to the point where the Dodgers either needed to activate him at that point or DFA him or throw him back on the IL. So it was kind of decision time here. I didn't think they'd be able to find any takers as far as the trade goes, but if this is all the deal is, I'm not bummed to see him go.
Yeah, I'd love to see some folks in the comments. Post your comments below. How are you feeling? Dylan says, I like it. Craig says, Noah has had enough chances. Orlando, I will only be disappointed if Cleveland fixes Syndergaard. I don't know. Based on what I saw, I'm just firmly of the belief that if the Dodgers can't fix a guy, I don't expect anybody else to be able to fix a guy. THP, easy dub. ACDC freak. I don't think Noah is fixable. He can barely throw 95. 95 is generous.
It takes a lot to impress our guy THP. So if he's on board, then I think everyone else should be on board.
Yeah, here we go. This feels like a joke for Blake. It's not a Thorable deal. There you go. Fleeceman. Okay, so the Andrew Friedman haters are going quiet for the day. Noah Syndergaard for Amed Rosario is
this feels too good to be true, so I'm still waiting to see Passan or Rosenthal confirm this. It's been a couple minutes now and still nothing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It feels too good to be true. And again, it could very easily be the Dodgers are paying the entirety of Noah Syndergaard's salary so that Cleveland is actually saving money or in this. Cleveland is netting positive. They're paying Rosario less than they would be paying Syndergaard. So it could be.
And I see our guy Blake. Yeah, I'll give Blake a little credit because I believe he was the first one I saw yesterday, at least to suggest the idea of Syndergaard for Kike. I know that's not what ended up happening, but this is pretty close.
Wow, so some credit for Blake Williams given by our guy Daniel Starkand.
Yeah, he might want to record that because it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, he's gonna definitely circle back to this one. I'm with you. It does feel like I would love to I would love to get one more person with credibility to quote this. No disrespect to our guy. What's his name?
Pat Randazzo
Yeah.
of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. I mean, as we await that real quick, Daniel, just to wrap this up, you kind of hinted at this. Well, let me ask you two things. One, do you think this trade is in response to the DeLuca injury, or do you think these two things are unrelated, that they would have sent DeLuca down and this is a completely different, unrelated idea?
As much as I'd like to say it's related, I think we kind of know how they feel about DeLuca. It's differently than how we feel, but I don't think the organization has been super high on Johnny DeLuca. I think he would have been sent down yesterday, or today, I guess, even if he didn't get hurt yesterday. So I think Kike was the DeLuca replacement, and this would be a Yanni Hernandez replacement / Miguel Rojas playing time replacement, and moves Rojas to the bench more often.
Yeah.
But I think Dave Roberts said yesterday like that the Kike move wasn't necessarily going to be their last for a position player. And when this is the price, heck, they might go out and get another guy now. I mean, if you're only giving up Syndergaard here, maybe there's another big deal out there. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think this had to do with the DeLuca injury. I just think they still want to address a need where against left-handed pitching.
Yeah. And the second question I was going to ask is, do you think they're done on the offensive side now?
I'm going to say yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was another move. I just think pitching is such a need, and I think the need for pitching is getting greater and greater just about every single day. Today, Tony Gonsolin has another, not great start. So me personally, I'd be fine if this was their last position player move. I don't think it's a perfect group, but I think it's a really solid group. Obviously, the top of their lineup is insane, and then you got guys in the middle that have been producing, and now you have better depth than you had before. So I'm good with this position player group. I'd like to see them go out and get some pitching now, which is what we've known they've needed for months.
Yeah. Ken Rosenthal, by the way, did just confirm Dodgers sending Noah Syndergaard to the Guardians for Amed Rosario pending a review of medicals. So maybe that pending a review of medicals is an important byline, but we won't stick to that. Kevin with the super chat. We appreciate you, Kevin. If the only pitcher they get is Lynn, then that is no good. I think we all agree on that. I think if the Dodgers don't add at least one pitcher that you feel decent about in a playoff series, then this is going to be a dud of a deadline. That's kind of my bottom line.
Yeah, I tweeted something similar today. When I think it was John Morosi had the Dodgers linked to Lynn, and I said if that's the second starter you're getting, then I'm good with it. If that's the only guy you're getting, then that would be very underwhelming.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to you in a text thread, but I'll bring it up. I thought it was a good question that we got asked on our live post-game show last night, which was a ton of fun, by the way. Much more fun than if we had to do a post-game show on today's game. But basically it was, would you trade a package of Cartaya and Michael Busch for Dylan Cease? And I tweaked the trade a little bit and said Dylan Cease and Lance Lynn. If you could trade Cartaya and Michael Busch for Dylan Cease, who has a couple more years of team control, and Lance Lynn, who's just like your number 5 starter, 6 innings, 4 earned every 5 days, would you do it?
Yeah, I think I would do that. If it came down to it, I think I would. I think Cease has a lot of upside. I responded to your text and I said I would kind of take that same package and call Seattle and ask about Logan Gilbert and their closer, whose name is escaping me. Paul Sewald. There you go. He's been really good for a few years now. Logan Gilbert is young, has a lot of upside. I think I believe it was Ken Rosenthal had an article last night that says the Mariners might be listening on Gilbert. Obviously the price would be high. He's 26 years old, having a pretty good year. He's having a better year than Cease. So that's I would prefer a package like that. But I think at the end of the day, if you could get Cease and Lynn, and you're giving up, good prospects for sure, but kind of in areas where you have depth. Like I think if you're giving up Cartaya, it's not the end of the world just because you have Will Smith, you have Dalton Rushing. We know how the organization feels about Michael Busch at this point. And then I think, what'd you say? Pepio was kind of the other headliner in that.
The package that was mentioned last night was Pepio and Yorbeat Vivas would be the other 2 pieces that would be included there.
So you're kind of trading from areas of your farm system where you have depth. Like we know they have a lot of young starting pitching in their farm system. So I think I would do that. I'd call Seattle first, and if they say no, then I'd go and get Cease. But who knows if the White Sox are going to move him? I know Giolito is absolutely going to be dealt, but Cease has a couple more years left, so you'd really have to wow them. But yeah, I think starting pitching is what you could go after, and if you could get a guy that's controllable for 2-3 more seasons, then absolutely.
Yeah, the other super chat, Napoleon Kaufman, thank you. Shout out to the legendary Raiders running back, Napoleon Kaufman. Trade for Nolan Arenado. Are you a fan of chasing down Nolan Arenado, whose defensive metrics are not awesome this year? Mm-hmm. Whether or not that's because he's old or because he's maybe less engaged than he has been, I don't know. But is Arenado a guy that gets you up out of your seat and gets you up onto the table to make a crazy offer?
The only thing I would be concerned about is the finances of that. Like, I'd be willing to give up the prospect capital that it would take to do that. But if bringing on another $25 million a year guy takes you out of the Ohtani sweepstakes, this winter, then to me, that wouldn't be worth it. If you could find a way to get Nolan and then still be all in on Ohtani, then I'd be cool with it. But like you said, the defense has declined. He's, past 30 at this point. Still a really good player, still drives in a ton of runs. So yeah, I'd be in on it as long as it doesn't, take them out of Ohtani, which I think still is the end goal here, going into this winter.
Yeah, Arenado, 4 years left after this one, paid through his age 36 season, basically works out to an average of $27 million a year. The first 2 years are a little bit more expensive, 35 and 32, but then it drops to 27 and finally to 15. The luxury tax salaries, are all basically the same. So, it's an interesting, he declined an opt-out. So he opted into the money that he had remaining, and he has no more opt-outs. So that's what he gets. I don't believe he has a no trade. Oh, he does have a full no trade clause, but again, they were basically saying they weren't going to trade him unless he demanded a trade, which I don't think would happen.
No. But also a report came out that the Dodgers are one of the teams he'd be willing to waive the no trade clause for, which isn't surprising. I mean, he's a SoCal guy, so I don't think the no trade would be an issue. That might even help the Dodgers, because if he says he wanted a trade and says he's not waiving the no trade for anyone but the Dodgers, then that would lower the cost. But that's a lot of stuff would need to happen in the next couple of days for that to come to fruition. So I'm just not expecting it. And pitching is still a much greater need at this time.
Yeah. So just briefly here, as we close this one out, I mean, pitchers that are on your wish list, Giolito, it sounds like is the guy. I mean, Giolito and Stroman are the two best pitchers that are basically locks to get traded. Stroman less so, because the Cubs are weirdly in it. Like the Cubs are just trying to maximize value in a year where they don't feel great about their roster, even if they have like a reasonable chance of making the playoffs. Giolito's walking at the end of the year on a team that is going nowhere. So I would say Giolito's a lock. Stroman is about as close to a lock as you can get, but he's the only other guy I would put in that kind of needle moving, feel really good about this guy pitching. There's other names, the Cardinals. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Montgomery and Flaherty, who didn't have that good of an outing today. I'm not too high on either of those guys. Eduardo Rodriguez from the Tigers is having a really good year. There's not a whole lot out there. Like there's still some teams that we don't necessarily know if they're going to be buying or selling yet. Mitch Keller from the Pirates was thrown out there as a potential, guy who could be available, but he's a guy that if the Pirates are going to deal him, they're going to want a lot back.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if there's a ton of quality starting pitching out there. So they might have to overpay a little, which is okay if you're getting someone you think has the upside of like let's say a number 2 starter in a postseason type of series. I think you'd be okay with a slight overpay. We know Andrew Friedman's never full on going to overpay. That's just not his style. But yeah, slim pickings and a lot of teams need starting pitching.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those situations where, they talk about that it's a seller's market. I think Rosenthal maybe was the one who had a quote of a team that was basically like, I wish we could be sellers right now because we would get 150 cents on the dollar for our guys. And that's definitely what it feels like for any team that's willing to sell. And so basically the Dodgers are going to be competing against all these other teams that are going to be trying to buy. And if the starting pitching market is as thin as it seems to be, and there's as many teams sort of, it's both, and there is both not a lot of starting pitching available, and every team needs starting pitching, lots of teams that are in the mix. This was one of the things they wanted when they added the extra wild card team. And in some ways, I think it has helped because less teams are selling and more teams are going for it. The flip side is there's just potentially less excitement, less action here at the trade deadline if some of these guys don't end up getting traded. Let's take a few minutes here and take some questions. If you want to throw a question in the chat for us, just all caps, question followed by your question. We'll get to a few of these. We appreciate the folks joining us. Another huge turnout here, almost 600 people watching live with us. So thank you to those on YouTube and Facebook watching live. If you're listening to this after the fact as part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, thank you to you as well. Again, if you're new here, if you're one of the folks that isn't normally part of our live shows, please subscribe, ring the notification bell. We went live yesterday and the Kike Hernandez trade and had a huge show. We're here live again as soon as the Amed Rosario. We got to react live to Noah Syndergaard's name, the name going the other way.
I gotta watch this back to see the look on my face.
Yeah, I thought Daniel was joking, but apparently serious. And so we've got tons of great content. Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic is going to be on with me tomorrow. So that's going to be a great show. Friday, we've got Jeff Erickson of RotoWire, who's going to be previewing the series against the Reds. And then we're going to have a live trade deadline show. So again, on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you're a podcast person, search DodgerHeads, find us on Apple, Spotify, Google. All of our longer shows end up there as well. So let's get to a few questions here. I see some in the chat, so thank you very much. ACDC Freak wants to know, should the Dodgers be willing to trade Emmett Sheehan? This is a question I asked you. I believe it was last Sunday. I was surprised by your answer, but then Justin Lorber gave me the same answer that you gave. I asked, would you be more willing to trade Emmett Sheehan, who was not on a top 100 prospect list anywhere prior to the season, or Gavin Stone, who was a consensus top 40-ish prospect in all of Major League Baseball? Both of you said you would rather trade Stone, that you like Sheehan more than Gavin Stone. So talk me through that one a little bit, Daniel.
Well, I guess the fact that Justin is on the same side as me makes me feel a little better about that. I guess he knows both of these guys a lot better than I do. But even though Sheehan hasn't necessarily had success his last few starts, I still think long term there's a lot of upside there. I think his fastball, he's got a really good fastball. He's got good stuff overall. He's just needs to work on the command a little bit. We've seen way too many walks, but he's a guy who wasn't even supposed to be anywhere close to the major leagues at this point in time. Like you said, coming into the year, he wasn't on any sort of prospect list. Obviously, he has a great, first half at AA. The Dodgers rotation is in shambles. So they call him up. He has a few good starts, and I think he's shown flashes of what he could be. And I think in today's MLB, I think a lot of times the pitchers that have success are the guys who have that upper 90s fastball that they could command at the top of the zone with a breaking ball to go with it. I think that's kind of what has success, and I think that's kind of the mold that he's in, and I think he's still young. He's only going to get better. And I just think I think Stone's still really good. I know this season hasn't been great for him. I think his upside is lower than Sheehan's. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be worse. Like, that's not how it always works out. But I still think long term, like, I'm not discouraged by what we've seen from Sheehan his last few starts just because he shouldn't be at this level. So I think if you're looking to trade, some of your right-handed pitching prospects, I think there's a lot of guys who are kind of in the same tier. I think Bobby Miller's in a tier of his own. And then that next, I think the next tier is Sheehan and Gavin Stone, and then another slight drop off before you get to all those other guys in AA and the Pepios and the Michael Groves of the world. So I definitely think those two are the two guys behind Bobby Miller. But I'd have Sheehan, slightly above Stone just because of the upside with him having better stuff.
Yeah, and Sheehan a year younger than Gavin Stone as well, so worth pointing that as well. Prize Picks Poppy wants to know, what would be one move that you would make right now if you could just pull some strings and acquire one player? Is it Giolito?
I'm gonna be realistic here and say Giolito. Like, I'm not gonna say Ohtani just because that's not gonna happen. I think it would be Giolito. I think he's kind of what I was just talking about. I think he's always had upside. Like, he's got good stuff. I think if he gets with the Dodgers and works on, tweaks a couple things, as far as his pitch mix goes, he has a really good changeup. I think he has the most upside as far, like I was talking about earlier, where you're looking for a guy who could potentially be your number 2 starter in a postseason series. I think he can maybe get there, and you're looking at a guy who's in the last year of his deal, so it would just be a rental, which brings down the price. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think if you could put together one deal where you get Giolito and Lance Lynn, and it's still not super expensive, like maybe you're giving up one of your like top 10 prospects and then a couple lottery tickets or whatever. I think that would be a really good deal.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Gavin Stone or somebody like that is the headliner. Maybe it's Gavin Stone and, somebody in that Grove, Pepio.
Maybe one of the guys on the 40 man, so you're clearing a 40 man space. Like you just mentioned, a Michael Grove type, a Yorbeat Vivas type. I think that there's a package in there that would work.
Yeah, would be interesting. Toby wants to know what top prospects are most expendable. I'm going to do a small plug here. If you missed it, myself and Justin Lorber, who's the guy that I go to for Dodger prospect updates and news, he has his own rankings. He's really plugged in on the Dodgers farm system. We had about a 25-minute show that posted this morning where we basically, the whole premise of the show was this question: which Dodger prospects are most likely to be traded? The obvious answer is Michael Busch. It just feels like he's destined to be traded. So he could be a guy in a Chicago White Sox trade. Maybe it's Michael Busch and Ryan Pepio or something like that. Could be the type of deal that gets you Giolito and a Lance Lynn. But I think Busch is the obvious one. I think Eddie's Leonard, who's not like a real hot name on anybody, but he's a guy who's already been optioned for a second year this year, but he's on the 40-man. I could see them trying to move some of those types of players who are already on the 40-man or need to be added to the 40-man. But that show was really, really fun because I got to ask him questions like, do you like Busch or Vargas more? Do you like Rushing or Cartaya more? Do you like, Sheehan or Stone more? And then I asked him about that next tier of Grove, Pepio, River, Ryan, et cetera, et cetera. So a ton of great content in there. But I would say the top of this list would be Michael Busch. He seems like the most obvious, quote unquote, expendable guy that the Dodgers have. Anybody else that jumps to mind for you, Daniel? Because like even Gavin Stone, for example, his value is down, but I can't see them trading him. When his value is down as far as it is right now.
Yeah, I feel that way about both Stone and Cartaya as well. Like he's not having a great year, so I don't think now, even though you have a surplus of catchers, I don't know if now is necessarily the best time to deal him. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think it's guys who are either on the 40-man or would need to be added to the 40-man at the end of this season to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. The Dodgers have a lot of those guys. There's going to be a huge 40-man roster crunch. We've been talking about it for like 2 months now. So I think those are the guys. And I see some people asking about Busch in the comments. It's not that me and you don't like Busch. I think me and you both like Busch a lot. I know Justin likes Busch a lot. It's the Dodgers that don't seem to like Michael Busch, unfortunately. They haven't given him much of a runway. He's been raking in AAA for 2 years now and hasn't really gotten much of a chance at the big league. So I think that kind of tells you how they feel about him.
Yeah, I mean, look, he hits lefties too. He just never gotten a chance. So when they trade for Kike and they trade for Rosario, rather than just giving Michael Busch a chance, it kind of tells you what they feel. TQT, it's going to be hard to get a starter in the seller's market. How disappointed would you be if we didn't get a starter by the deadline? I mean, it'd be a 10 out of 10 disappointment for me.
Well, yeah, I think I could say with almost 100% certainty they will get at least one starter. Like I think they see the current state of their rotations. I think both of us would be pretty disappointed if they don't get two, honestly. The way the rotation is looking, like I don't think even one would be enough. But if you're getting one, like number 2 or number 3 starter, and then a back end innings eater, I think that would be that would satisfy us both.
Brandon asks, when do we pull the plug on Austin Barnes? Is yesterday an option?
Is 2-3 months ago an option?
Yeah. Look, if it were up to us, this would be different.
Yeah.
Let's see if we've got more questions. Toby asked that question again. This is a tougher one. Legend asks, if all the top trade targets are off the board for starting pitchers, who would you target? I mean, that's what's hard is you don't know who's actually available. Lance Lynn feels like the answer to this question for me. Again, I want to be clear. Like sometimes when we say I would trade Michael Busch, people think we hate Michael Busch. We like Michael Busch. We're saying we think it's going to happen. Just because I say I want to trade for Lance Lynn does not mean I think Lance Lynn is like the savior for this team and the answer to all of their problems. What it means is Lance Lynn's a guy who every 5 days can give you 6 innings. And that has some value. It's a different type of value than a guy who has a 3.2 ERA, but it is some sort of value. So if the top trade targets are off the board, if Giolito, if Cease, if Montgomery, if Stroman, none of those guys are attainable or they get moved somewhere else, I do think Lance Lynn is a reasonable outcome for the Dodgers. Hopefully just not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I don't have any names off the top of my head, honestly, other than a Lance Lynn, or I mentioned Eduardo Rodriguez, but he's having a pretty good year, so he might be in a higher tier than that. James Paxton is another guy I like, but I don't think the Red Sox are necessarily selling outside of the Kike move. So, like we said, it's slim pickings out there. There's also guys that will emerge that no one is talking about, and that's kind of what we've seen the Dodgers do in the past. So there's probably a name that hasn't been mentioned at all that will pop up in the next few days.
Sarah Langs just tweeted the most three or more hit games since the start of 2021. Freddie Freeman is first with 44. Amed Rosario is second with 43. Luis Arias is 41 and Bo Bichette 40. So there you go. Elite player coming to the Dodgers, according to Sarah Langs. Robert asks, how important is it that the Dodgers win the NL West? I think it's a big deal that they get one of those top 2 seeds.
Yeah, I think you want to avoid a wild card series at all costs for sure. I mean, it just allows you to get more rest. It sets up your rotation better, and we've seen what could happen in a short series. Like, just because the Dodgers are the more talented team doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win. So I think it's very important. I think if you look around the division, no one is really playing that well right now, which is good. Like, even the Dodgers have lost, 3 out of 4 now.
Yeah.
And they haven't really lost any ground as far as their, 4-game lead in the division. So I think it's important, and I think it's going to happen. I don't see any of these teams catching the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm with you. Toby's asking, where can I find the show I was talking about? So if you look right below, you should see the Dodger blue logo. Go to find our page. First, subscribe, then ring the notification bell. But if you scroll through our videos, we posted a handful today. We post a lot of the post-game interviews and that kind of thing. But that got posted this morning, 9 or 10 a.m., and so look for that. Again, I can't recommend Justin's stuff. Look him up at Future Dodgers on social media, futuredodgers.com as well. Tons of great stuff on there. Let's see if we have any more questions here before we call this one. Michael asks, could the Dodgers trade for Tyler Anderson? He hasn't been very good, but I mean, I suppose, if we're talking Lance Lynn, then maybe we should mention Tyler Anderson in the same breath. His contract is brutal,
that's the thing about Anderson is he's got 2 years left, which is why the Dodgers didn't want to re-sign him in the first place. So maybe if the Angels are eating like half the deal or something, then it looks a little more manageable. But like you said, he's not having that good of a year. And in theory, the Angels are still going for it. They're not sellers. They're keeping Ohtani. So I don't really see them trading any of their, guys.
Yeah, we'll take Anderson's money on top of Ohtani. We'll take that as a little bit of filler as well.
Wouldn't mind that.
Dodger Blue wants to know, which pitchers should the Pirates trade? Bednar? Give me the
Matt's trying to get me in trouble here, I see. I suggested that they trade David Bednar a couple years ago. It didn't work out. Or Pirates fans got really mad at me. They didn't deal him. Now they might deal him again. He's really good. Yeah. I'll give him that. I was just watching the end of the Padres game. He worked himself into a little bases loaded jam, but then got out of it. So I guess we could give him a little credit there. But I still don't think he'll be moved. The way the Pirates operate, they're probably one of the weirdest teams in the league. They think they're in the mix. They think they're a year away when they've been 5 years away for a decade now.
I saw something that they like messed up their draft worse than anybody else. They left like over $1.1 million on the table out of their draft pool that they could have spent, which everyone was like, that's basically like a top 50 player that they could have just signed, and they kind of screwed it up. So shout out to them. They're just
cheaper.
Or dumb.
That's how bad teams stay bad, I guess.
Yeah. This is a simple one. John asks, is there any chance the Padres will deal Snell to the Dodgers? 0%.
No.
0%. Because
knowing AJ Preller, he's going to go out and buy, even though the Padres are 10 games out or whatever.
Tommy might have an easier question. Can we still get Mad Bum? I mean, technically, yes.
He's out there. There's a reason his phone hasn't rang since he got let go by the D-backs. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Again, the D-backs, a team that wants want to win and are allegedly going to be buyers. There we go. All right, here we go. Blake wants me to correct this. Daniel, you can be the arbiter of truth here. This is an inside joke from our show last night. It was National Drive-Thru Day a couple of days ago. Matt Moreno posted, where are you going to celebrate National Drive-Thru Day? Blake response was Chipotle. And then he defended that Chipotle counts as a drive-through restaurant because apparently there's like 1 or 2 drive-throughs. And then secondly, followed it up with, well, that's just where I'm going. That's not where I would want to go. Like basically completely misinterpreted the question of where. Obviously Matt was not saying, where are you literally having dinner tonight? He was asking, where would you go in honor of this? So I'll let you set the record straight. Did I do Blake dirty last night by saying that he picked Chipotle?
No, because that's what he picked. I mean, he could try to spin it however he wants. He picked Chipotle. I will say they do have some drive-throughs, the Chipotle close to me, but you order it on the app and then you go pick it up in the drive-through. So I don't know if that's technically a drive-through. A drive-through is when you pull up, you order at the window, then you pull up and get your food. That's not how Chipotle is. Chipotle, you just pull up and grab what you bought already.
Okay. We'll get
the drive-through, I don't think of Chipotle, even though I like Chipotle.
Yeah, we'll get the drive-through folks on that to let us know if that qualifies as a drive-through. Technically, you are driving and you are driving through a lane, but if you have to place the order on an app beforehand, does that count? And confirmed, as Michael said, Blake needs to be sent down to AA, so he can clear space for Michael
Cleveland with Syndergaard.
Yeah, I will give Blake this. When he changed his answer and came to his senses, he did say Raising Cane's, which is a 9.5 out of 10 answer. In and out, number 1 answer. Raising Cane's number 2 answer. So There you go. Blake's got that going for you. So, hey, everybody, we appreciate you hopping on with us. Thank you again for joining. A huge turnout. We greatly appreciate that. Again, if you're new here, this is what we do. So please subscribe and ring the notification bell so that next time the Dodgers make a move and we do go live, you're able to join us. As I've said, Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic is joining me tomorrow morning. That's going to post right after we finish recording. That should be a good one. I've got lots of things that I want to ask him about. Yeah, lots to talk about, lots of rumors. I'm curious if he has any insight into guys that maybe the Dodgers are targeting or kicking the tires on, because he was one of the first people to mention Kike Hernandez as somebody that the Dodgers could potentially go out and acquire. And sure enough, they did. So check that. Again, Jeff Erickson, one of the top guys at RotoWire, is going to be on with me Friday, breaking down the series against the Reds and Ellie De La Cruz this weekend. Daniel and myself, maybe a couple other folks, will be live on Monday, right before the trade deadline and past it, breaking down whatever the Dodgers do. So hopefully we're talking some Lucas Giolito, maybe Giolito and Stroman. Maybe they just add all the starting pitching and just go all in.
Hey. The important thing to remember, especially since we talk about how there's not a lot of starting pitching, is anyone the Dodgers get, they're also keeping him away from some of these other contenders. So that's an important factor. We saw that 2 years ago when the Dodgers go out and get Scherzer and Trey right after it was reported that the Padres were about to get Scherzer. So that's part of it.
Good point. And last thing, if you're a podcast person, please search DodgerHeads on Apple, Spotify, Google. Give us a follow, a rating, and a review. We would greatly appreciate it. That's Daniel Starkand. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, thanks for joining us. And of course, go Dodgers.